Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the CBT podcast. I'm here with Ethan. I'm here with Rod, and today we're going to be talking about the end of an era in the NBA and a shift into a brand new one. So, starting the summer of 2007, we saw the first modern super team in the NBA when the Boston Celtics traded for both Kevin Garnett and Ray Allen to team up with Paul Pierce. Great move, might I say. And they ended up getting one championship in 4 seasons. Shortly after that, we saw Miami. I'm sure we're all familiar with this one. The decision with LeBron, Chris Bosh joining with Dwyane Wade, and they had 2 championships. After that, LeBron, he joined yet another super team. He's quite a fan of them in Cleveland when they traded for Kevin Love and had Kyrie Irving there. And then finally, the most infamous super team, I think, in NBA history, when Kevin Durant joined the Warriors in the summer of 2016. I am still shocked by that move 6 years later. But we've seen success from super teams in the past, but in the modern era, they just haven't had anywhere this near the same level of success. So, Rod, do you want to talk about some of the recent super teams that we've seen?
Yeah, I think you definitely mentioned it when I think we can all agree that the Warriors are definitely the last successful super team, if you want to add. And if we want to take a look at the recent ones, I just think there have been many attempts in the past few years. We can talk about the Thunder when they tried to add Carmelo Anthony after already acquiring Paul George to team up with Russell Westbrook. Obviously, that was a total disaster. You can talk about the Lakers, again, trying to add a Russell Westbrook, completely blowing up in their face. And the Nets, the moment they pulled the trigger on James Harden, they were labeled a super team. So I think the issue with super teams nowadays is that many GMs just have a misconception on what it takes to win nowadays in the NBA. The most important components for a championship team, you got to be well coached. You got to have compatible star players who complement each other, and you got to have good depth pieces. The majority of super teams are poorly coached, mainly because the coach has no authority over the star players. They have highly uncompatible and toxic relationships between their star players, i.e., Russell Westbrook and the Lakers, and they have absolutely no depth whatsoever. So you see all these teams in kind of desperate big market situations, obviously, trying to take the risk and the money shot to gain these superstars and put them together. And we've just seen in recent years, all it's done is blow up in their faces.
Yeah, I think another thing that needs to be mentioned, especially about the recent Lakers and Nets super teams, is a lot of the times they bring in all these stars who are just offensive, just geniuses. I mean, look at the Nets, Kyrie, KD, and James Harden. But then you don't have as many guys on your roster who are willing to lay it all out there and defend. We just saw the Celtics make a run all the way to the finals, and the backbone of that run was entirely their defense because it sure wasn't the offense, I'll tell you that much. So I think that's another thing you need to keep in mind. It's a cliche, but defense does win championships in basketball. And if you're not worried about that when you're building a super team, it's likely it'll fail just like these ones we've seen recently.
I think the thing about the super teams that we've seen recently that have failed is in terms of also the players not wanting to sacrifice. I think, especially, let's just look at the Warriors for a second. The Warriors have had Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green homegrown. They have built their own name in Oracle. Like now it's not Oracle anymore. This is Chase Center. Yeah, but and then you have KD, all world talent, come in, and Steph basically gave him the keys and said, "It's your team." And you just don't see that nowadays. Like LeBron, LeBron would not take a back seat to Russell Westbrook. And I'm not saying he has to take a back seat, but also like you have to sacrifice a little bit. You can't always be the one. Also, Russell Westbrook tries to go in there, think he can just, be an all-time great Laker, throw up some stinky shots. It just doesn't work. It's like, yeah, like it's just nowadays the best teams have players that are willing to just take a back seat to some of the other ones. And I think, yeah, that is starting to really deteriorate super teams nowadays.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head with the toxicity and the egos that really prevent these super teams from working for a long period of time. And I think the reason KD the Warriors was so successful is because KD did not care whatsoever if he didn't drop 30 points one game because all he cared about was winning a ring. And he was willing to put all his ego and attitude problems to the side in order to get that ring. When Harden went to the Nets, KD, already a champion. Kyrie, already a champion. James Harden was the only guy there who was giving it 100% until the playoffs where he got hurt and it fell apart. Lakers, Russell Westbrook, only guy that's not a champion. AD and LeBron are already, they've reached the mountaintops. They're obviously not going to give 100% effort like Russ. He tried last season. But now, like you said, the best teams nowadays, they have guys who everybody on the team, top to bottom, knows their role. Look at the Bucks recently. Obviously, the Celtics. We know what the Warriors do. Even the Heat, when they made it in the bubble. The Suns, when they made their appearance. These teams, I hope it's a blueprint that GMs look at. It's not about getting the big splash in free agency, getting the top free agent on the market. It's about really evaluating and thinking, what guy can we bring in to not carry what we already have, but to elevate what we already have and have already been building.
Yeah, and going back to that Warriors super team that we saw just a few years ago, the thing that made them so great was that every one of their four main players, KD, Steph, Klay, and Draymond, are elite on and off the ball. And I think that's something that a lot of general managers around the league fail to even think about. I mean, we were looking at when they paired Russ, PG, and Carmelo in Oklahoma City in 2017, for example. We had never seen any of those guys, besides Russ, of course, play with another big time scorer, big time guy. So we had no idea how they played without the ball in their hands. As I'm sure we're all aware, that failed. But the problem with super teams is the NBA is a league that loves to follow trends. The three-point barrage that we've seen recently, and everyone started doing it because it was working for the Warriors. So back in the day, these NBA teams saw the Celtics succeed and Miami succeed. And at the time, you could put together a super team, but that just won't fly anymore in the modern NBA. I think we're moving into an era of great duos in the NBA. We've seen Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. It's Steph and Klay in Golden State. No, it's really more like Steph and Wiggins if we're being real. So I think that's what you need. You need the two stars, and then you need the role players who know their roles. They're good defenders. They're not worried about their stat sheet, anything. They just want to go out there and win ball games.
Yeah. I mean, and if we take a look at any type of fleeting hope that super teams could have in the future, I mean, what top star players do we have in the league right now that have yet to win a championship? I mean, Dame just signed the rest of his career away to the Trailblazers. He's not looking to move. I doubt Luka would leave the Mavericks in the attempt to try and create a super team. It would have to be the Mavericks bringing somebody else in. Steph has rings. LeBron has rings. Giannis, Kawhi, KD. I really just think from the front office perspective, they're all going to be too scared moving forward to try and blow up their future for a super team. And I don't know if we have the star players right now who are willing to move and put their reputation on the line to try and go get that ring.
Yeah, and even if a team does attempt to make another super team, the general manager has to make sure they have players who are willing to play together and they think will play together. Because it seems like a lot of guys, Sean Marks, for example, he's treating the NBA like he's playing my league or my team on 2K. He goes out there and gets some of the best players in the league, puts them all together, and just expects them to gel and work as one. But like, it's just going back to what we talked about, the homegrown talent. Let these guys develop together, play together for years, get that playoff experience together, have everyone on your team going through the same things, and you'll have a championship. It's what we've seen in the 70s, 80s, 90s, the 2000s even. But then the 2010s brought this new era of guys hopping teams left and right. No one's stopping it. And then just this year in the finals, we saw two homegrown teams. The last 2 years in the finals, we saw the Warriors and Celtics homegrown, and we saw the Suns and Bucks who were mostly homegrown. So that's a really welcome sight to see for me because I hated the super team era. Yeah. I want these guys to have loyalty. And the biggest thing I want as an NBA fan is parity. I don't want to know who's going to win the finals going into the season. When KD was on that Warriors team, I felt like it was a foregone conclusion. They were coming away with the ring at the end of the year. And I was only watching basketball because I love to watch basketball, not to see who would end up winning the finals at the end.
Yeah, I'm just really glad we're heading into a new era where homegrown talent is encouraged, good coaching is encouraged, ball movement. star players remaining where they were drafted. And I just hope it's a lesson to all the future GMs and front offices of what not to do if you're trying to win championships.
No, definitely. Especially when we were talking like how you mentioned the last four teams, like the Warriors, the Bucks, the Suns, the Celtics, they really have been homegrown. And I
Yeah.
think you're starting to see a lot of other teams do that slowly. Of course, not the teams that have like, LeBron or Kawhi already, but teams like Orlando that
Yep.
keep getting like lottery picks. I think the Spurs are trying to set themselves up there.
Houston.
Houston. And you kind of also see it a little bit in the Hawks. I mean, I know they just traded for DeJounte Murray, but Trey there. They have a
It was
little
like the
formula.
CP3 move, just adding a player
Mhm.
to what you already have.
Yeah, that's what teams should be doing, not
Yeah.
going out and getting this superstar that'll take up all your cap space and then you just have to get a bunch of little role players. You want to have homegrown talent as well as a couple other veterans to like help train those young stars to becoming selfless and really playing as a team and not for yourself or for your name.
Yeah, and I think something that a lot of GMs are failing to remember is you don't have to go out there and make the greatest team of all time. You don't have to put a team together that could compete with the 2018 Warriors. You just need to go out there and put a team together that's better than the 29 other teams in the NBA at that time. And a super team is oftentimes not the answer to that question. So any final thoughts about the era of super teams and its death?
Me showing up to the super team era funeral, bro. I'm so happy.
All right, well, I think that's going to do it for us in today's video. And ask that you please drop a like, subscribe, leave a comment. Did you enjoy the super team era? Do you think the super team era is actually done? With every new era comes a new GOAT. Victor Wembanyama will be here soon. Thank you guys once again for watching, and we will see you in the next video.